Good to have you with us this evening as we're going to have another episode of Shepherd Talk with one of our shepherds, Jack Smith. You know, Braxton Dozier came by my office before this and said, Mr. Chris, can you keep it short? I want to play in the gym. So
I got you.
I said, you got to talk to Jack also.
Yes, I want to play too. Yes.
The idea behind this, and we've done this several times, is for our congregation to get some insight into the heart of these men that I get the pleasure of serving with, that Jake and Blake get this pleasure of serving with. And we got you a chair. Jack said, I can't do the stools. I may fall off.
I may fall off.
Jack's back doesn't always cooperate with him, so we got you a chair. You know, I want to start, Jack, by you telling the congregation just a little bit about yourself. We have a lot of new members that may not know you real well. Just give us a brief synopsis about who you are.
Very good. Well, I was raised in Haskell, Texas, and James is just a few years younger than me. I had a marvelous family. I grew up in the Methodist church, but we were at services morning, evening, every time the door was open, we were there. And I had a marvelous community to grow up in. It was great. My first exposure to the Church of Christ was through James's dad. James's father was my biology and chemistry teacher. And in those days, if we went to service at the Church of Christ or a gospel meeting, we got extra points on the test. So let me tell you, we were there. We were there. After I was exposed to the church, I started asking my mom a lot of questions about why Methodists did this and why we don't do that. And she said, well, Charles Wesley or John Wesley is a founder of the church, and he just knows a lot of stuff. And I looked in our church library, and Charles Wesley books of discipline were like 12 volumes. And I'm going, why do we need all that? Why, wouldn't the Bible be a lot easier to do? And I could not really get a good answer about that. But my exposure to the church was just so positive. Then in college, several of my good friends from Haskell were there at Tarleton, and they would invite me to the Bible chair. First started going because they had a great ping pong table and had pizza and all. But then the more I was exposed, the more I realized, I really could make a change. Yeah. And so, I knew the truth for a long time before I obeyed the gospel. Yes.
That's exciting.
Yes, sir.
Jean is your lovely wife that fills in for some here at the church when we need a secretary on hand.
Always.
Does a good job with that.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate her very much. 2 sons?
Jay is a librarian in Houston, and I have one grandson there, Brandon. He just turned 5, and he goes to Northland Christian School. Okay. And then my youngest son is a Jeff, and he's an actor in New York City. And he will be here to do the Nutcracker Ballet. Yes. So be sure and get your tickets if you want to see men in tights. Yes. So
Jeff is
he's a special guy.
He's an awesome guy.
He's a special guy. Yes, he is. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story. I love that story.
Thank you.
I want you to, because our focus is more on caring for the flock tonight, but obviously it can go in other directions when we talk about that. But why don't you tell me and tell us what you believe is the number one first responsibility for a shepherd?
Well, Chris, you mentioned this several times, but as Bruce Vincent said, the motivational speaker, he said, you have to be available. You have to show up. You have to be there. And I learned this in college. I played football at Tarleton, and I wasn't all that great a player, but I never missed a meeting. I never missed a practice. And so when it came time to move up to the varsity and all that, I was selected to do that. So I learned that, to be available. And here, and I could not do what I do here to serve Oldham Lane if I was not retired. And I feel like I can do a good job now when Brianna calls me or we need to visit with someone. So I think be available. Number one thing, be there.
I mentioned that I'd like for our congregation to see the heart of the individuals that we serve with, and I said this before: any elder, I get leery of a man that is seeking the office to be an elder. If
Yes,
he's
sir.
lobbying for it or politicking for it, I'm always leery of a gentleman like that. Not saying he can't be good at it,
Right.
but you're always leery for that. But when you were approached and I came to talk to you and
Yes.
say, hey, I'm going to put you down as someone that would be a great potential elder, your
Yeah.
response was you broke down in tears.
I did. I said, Chris, I don't know enough.
And as soon
I don't
as
have
you did that,
much
I knew you were-
experience.
as soon as you
know,
did that, I
don't-
knew you were ready.
I don't think I could do it,
Yeah.
you know. And then Chris said this. He said, you know, many are called and few are chosen. You're chosen, and you need to do this.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'll
I'm
do
very
it.
convincing
I'll
that
do
way,
my
aren't you?
best. I do my best. I had 2 choices and one didn't count. Yeah.
That's right. You know, we talk about our elders, have mentioned this before, and I've mentioned this, that they fight the battle on their knees. You know, that the biggest weapon
sir.
that perhaps we have as a church, as individuals, and as elders is prayer.
Is
Talk
prayer.
about the importance of prayer in your
Yes.
daily life when it comes to being a shepherd.
We're supposed to, core commanded to pray without ceasing. And I'm pretty good at what they would call stoplight prayers. Yesterday, I went to see Forrest McCann. And I pulled up and I stopped in the parking space and I said, Lord, you know, I don't know what I'm going to see when I see Forrest, but let me have a positive influence on him, allow him to communicate with me. And so just that short time right there praying to God about my relationship with Forrest and what I was going to do took 2 minutes, 2 minutes. But I do have that habit of doing this, and I mentioned this in some of my classes before. I get up, I don't sleep well at night, so like this morning I was up at 3, and so I'll be ready to go to bed early tonight. but I take that opportunity to go in the living room, and at the appropriate time, I kneel. That puts me in the right frame of mind to go to God and with a humble heart.
Yeah.
So I kneel there at the couch and go over my petition, and so I feel better about it. And you know, all of us who have children, we wish that our kids would call us more often.
Right.
And God feels that same way too.
Sure.
He says, "Why haven't you talked to me recently?" So it's
That's a good way to
very,
look at it.
very important.
Yes.
Yeah, very important. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, you've been an elder for
3 years.
3 years?
Next
Okay.
month.
I was going to say
Yeah.
4. Okay. 3 years.
3 years next month.
How much of your eyes been opened? Because, you know, I'm sure there's things you don't see when you're a member that you are exposed to as an elder. What's been kind of the most difficult part, not being specific necessarily, but what's been
Sure.
the most difficult part about being an elder?
Well, I think when you look at the eldership, we're all goal-oriented. And Blake always reminds us about this, about make and grow disciples. Forget those goals and think of the individual. And also, and you look across the eldership, and we've got people like James who runs his own business, and Clay, and I ran the sports center, and I worked with about 40 different coaches, most of them young girls. But when I would say do this, they would do it, and when I would say do that, they would do it. And so I was just amazed, and I knew it would be this way, that the eldership, even though the elders had a lot of authority in their own jobs, the openness at the meetings and the decisions that were going, you know, this is really important. We're not going to leave this room till everybody expresses their opinion and everybody decides this is the best course of action. And so when we leave the room, we can truly say we're united in that issue. We're united. There's a lot of different opinions, but you always go back to the scriptures and say, this is it. Yeah.
I've talked about that before. You know, when preachers get together, one of the things that they seem to always kind of make fun of is elders' meetings, how treacherous they are and how miserable they are. You're there until late, you know, all hours of the night and all that. And I sit there and I kind of think, I don't really share that sentiment, you know.
Yes.
But that's one thing that I've noticed about your elders' meetings is that when I'm in there anyway, you know, there can be disagreement and things like that. But when you leave that room, you've decided you're all on the same page, and we're gonna be united and to be a
Yes,
united
sir.
front.
And I learned real quick too that the gentlemen who've been elders for years, they go in there, and when they're a chairman, they have 2 months that they're responsible for setting up the meetings and the agenda. They have everything planned out. On Friday, the agenda goes out, and everybody can look at it and say good, bad, ugly, whatever.
Sure.
And so we stay on that schedule.
Yeah.
And so it could drag on, but we stay on that schedule, and that's the best way to be. I like to have a plan.
Yeah.
And I like to stick with the plan and do that as the best we can.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the reverse of that. So you said the most difficult thing. What's the most joyous thing about being an elder? What has been the thing that you have noticed that is the most rewarding or satisfying, gratifying about being an elder?
That's really easy. It is hugging people after baptisms, being at weddings, and being a representative of the eldership and the and Oldham Lane, and those are the things that births of the Wallace had the new baby, and just to be able to pray and say thank you, Lord, for that wonderful blessing. So those are the highlights.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
getting to be involved individually with those people at weddings and baptisms and things.
Right.
It's a big deal. Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about, we've talked about this, you joined me, you and Larry Bell, on the Dear Church podcast recently,
Yes, sir.
and we talked a little bit about this. But mention, when it comes to caring for the flock, what are some really important hallmarks or keys
Okay.
to being effective as a shepherd caring for the flock?
Of course, we said that, be available.
Yeah.
And with me being retired, I'm available, 24/7. But all the other elders are available, their phone, to text and call, emails, and so they're all available all the time.
Sure.
Secondly is to be trustworthy. And those people who come to you and they say, "Boy, this is confidential," and don't tell anybody. And they say two can keep a secret if one of them is dead.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But to be trustworthy, and when you become an elder, I think you have only a short window of opportunity. There's a certain built-in trustworthiness to being in that role. But then if you don't take care of it in the first couple of months, you're not effective at all.
Right.
So you need to be trustworthy. You need to be a good listener, and I have worked on that over the years. I'm a good speaker, and I enjoy talking. And when I was younger, I used to have a tendency to dominate all the conversations, thinking I knew best. But then I've learned over the years, working in the private sector and then serving as a deacon here, that some people, they just need a sounding board. I mean, you don't come in there and try to solve all their problems. You say, okay, you just listen and let them talk, and then go from there. I think those are the best hallmarks: being available, being a good listener, and being trustworthy.
Yeah.
Especially, yes.
Certainly goes into it.
Yes, sir.
No, that's not an exhaustive list, but that's definitely.
Yes.
I don't mean to compare serving on the school board to an eldership, but I know when I first began doing that, I would talk to our superintendent about, I'm really struggling to find out what my role is here, because I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good with policy. What is my role here? And it took me a while to figure that out. How about you? Did it take you a while? I mean, how did you figure out what I bring to the table, and how did you find your niche in the eldership?
As I say, I came in as an elder in November 4 years ago, and then in December I was the chairman.
Oh,
So,
okay. Trial by fire.
and
then.
I said, hey, Royce, I said, why don't you go ahead and go before me? He said, no, you got it. So it was a situation, but I had served as a deacon. I had watched those good men like Bob Childress and his Beecher here tonight, Beecher McCormick, and seeing those good men serve. And, they're here all the time. They listen, they pay attention. They study their Bible. They teach classes, and so it was the example that I saw from them that made it easier to step into the role.
Yeah.
Besides Roy saying, "No, you got it."
And that told you something about being the chairman too.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Royce is telling you, no.
It's like running the half mile, and after that 1.5 laps, you know you're the only one. You're the one out there going, "Oh, have I done something wrong?" Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this. This question I've always been interested in before I became a preacher. What are some of the things that you do as a shepherd that are obvious, but what are some things that you do that people don't ever see?
Yeah.
I know that's kind of, you don't want to blow your own horn here, but what are some things that maybe the congregation, can observe and see that the shepherds do on a regular basis, but what are some things that maybe they don't know that y'all do?
Prayer life is the most important thing, I think, that's that people don't know. Right. They don't know anything about. You expect to say, well, the elders should be praying, but that's very important. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. Right. Secondly, is to check in with Brianna, the church receptionist, and say, or have her. I said, when something comes up, immediately call me right then, and then I'll take care of that. Or going into your office or see with Blake or Jake and say, okay, are there any individuals that need special attention right now? And those are all things that no one knows about, that you have to be involved with. Right. Yeah. So it's you're not necessarily blowing your own horn, but there's things to do, and you just do them and go on. Yeah, but those are.
And one of the most obvious things is feeding the flock. I mean, that's a shepherd's role as much as anything. Right. Talk a little bit about feeding the flock as a part of caring for the flock. Right. Making certain that they are well fed, that every time they come here, they're getting a spiritual feast. Well,
number one, besides the prayer life, is to be able to have a good pattern of reading and studying the Bible, and not just going through and calling the words out, but making a specific plan and say, okay, I'm gonna get all the information I can on Romans, and I'm going to do that and study it and be ready. And then I think I enjoy teaching, and so of course that's important to be teaching here in the auditorium or in one of the other classrooms, and I always let Jake know I'm available, and also about the teachers and say, I'll sub for you anytime. Yeah. We can do that. Of course, I like to have a couple of days notice, but I don't mind. Some people think the unknown is scary. I think it's exciting. Right. And so, said, all right, you've got 24 hours. Be ready to do this. But that goes with studying beforehand. The different scriptures, reading some different versions of the Bible. I learned that from Bob Connell years ago at Haskell at the church there. Bob was the first gospel preacher that I heard, and I remember him talking about, be exhaustive when you're looking at the scriptures. Get the King James version, of course, is the original version of the Bible, right. And then look at the New International and and all those different versions, and look and compare those. And the Bible that I use, and I usually use a computer program all the time, but the Bible that I use has four translations on each page, and so you can go line by line and look and get ideas and opinions. But I think study beforehand. Years. I always was a fan of Billy Graham and his dedication to his work. And he said, if I had 5 years to live, I would study for 3 and preach for 2. Yeah. So that outside study is really critical to be ready and to give someone a ready answer when they have a question.
Yeah, it's not just about feeding them in a Bible class. It's about outside of that as well.
Outside when they have a call, and we were talking about being discreet. Some people will tell you things, and being the ministry, they say, this is personal, private. I'm going to tell you what's on my heart and my soul, and And you have to be able to keep those things,
Yeah.
keep those things with you. And some of them are kind of bothersome. And the hardest thing I think to do is to deal through family problems.
Yeah.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
That's a feeding that we don't always think about.
We don't know when someone's having trouble in their marriage, or they have a rebellious child, or what does Shakespeare say? How sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child.
Mm-hmm.
And so working with kids, and when I was in the 7th grade, I knew I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to work with kids. So I spent the last 45 years working with students, and man, they can throw all kind of questions out there. Yes. And make you rethink your philosophy on life. I said, okay, and it is more difficult today. When we were growing up, the most worrisome thing was chewing gum in class.
Yeah.
Now, if you worry about someone's going to bring a gun or something like that, so students, young people nowadays, it's a rougher go than it was 30 or 40 years ago. Yes, it is.
Talk just a minute about the difficulty of leading a volunteer organization. We talked about this 2 weeks ago, I think, when we talked about elders in the sermon and how you don't drag sheep. You can't put them on a leash, nor can you be a herdsman and bark orders at them from behind and prod them with a cattle prod or something like that. So talk about, I don't know, I wouldn't say difficulty, because I don't think this is a difficult group to lead, but talk about the challenge of maybe getting folks to understand that this is a working organization, and that even though you're a volunteer, we've got to invest, and we've got to be doing.
When I'm visiting with folks about volunteering for something or doing something special, I like to sit by them like this. I don't like to sit knee to knee and look. That is so challenging.
Yeah.
And you always say, we need some help in this area. Mm-hmm. Now, who's going to refuse you if you say, I need help? Mm-hmm. I need help. So barking the orders, as you say, they just kick at the goad. Mm-hmm. And so you've learned that you do approach people that way. But this congregation has been special, different. You've been here for a long time. And we have a special thing going with people that are here because they want to be, they want to serve God. And most of the time you call someone you visit, said, man, I need some help on this, and they're going, what can I do?
Yeah.
What do you need? What do you need? I'm there. Whether it's a lady or a man or a young person or an older person. And my greatest joy is through the men that I have contact with. Mm-hmm. I was visiting with the young man this last week, and he said, I visited Overland a couple of times. I really like what I see. And he said, I need some Christian male companionship. Mm-hmm. I need to be around men, manly men who love Jesus.
Need friends.
And so it's easy in this congregation to get people to do things. Yes.
I think it is. I think we're blessed to serve a congregation that is so willing in so many ways. And I think it makes
talented too. And you look like the number of song leaders we have, and Bible teachers, and people that can get up and lead prayers. And it's almost mind-boggling. Jean and I took a fall foliage tour several years ago up in Tallahena, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And we went to a service on Wednesday night, and there were 12 people there, and they were all related, And so when they found out I was from Abilene, they said, wow, do you want to lead singing? You want to say a prayer? I said, you don't want me to sing. I said, I'll lead a prayer. But we are so blessed to have a great congregation of people that are willing to serve, know the Bible so well. Yeah.
Makes your job a lot easier.
Oh my, yes,
all the elders.
Yes. And when I was growing up, and I had an awesome mother and father, and my mom was really a smart lady. She said, keep working, keep listening, prepare yourself, because there's something big coming up in your life, and here it is.
Yes.
And I feel like I've spent, I'm 66. I've spent 65 years preparing for this opportunity. Of all the things I've done and all the experience that I have, to serve at as an elder here has been the most pleasurable, the most exciting. And when I was talking about visiting with the other elders about doing this, and I talked to Travis Smith, and I said, Travis, you know, do I need to do this? And he said, the 10 years that I've served here have been the best 10 years of my life. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm in. I'm in. Let's do it.
That's great. And a good place to stop. So thank you, Jack.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And sharing all this.
Yes,
and we always like to close our service with an invitation, at least the sermon part of it. And so we do want to offer an invitation for anyone who needs the prayers of this church family. If you'd like to study the Bible with one of the elders, one of the staff members, somebody here, then we'd love to put you in touch with somebody to do that. If you're ready to begin a daily walk with God, maybe you're ready to put on Christ in baptism, you want to do that tonight, certainly we want to take care of that. We say it every week, do not leave here without being right with God. There's no good reason to leave here without being right with God. And so hopefully everybody got something great out of this, and hopefully Braxton was satisfied that it was at the right length. And we thank.
We have plenty of time.
That's right. That's right. We thank you so much for being here, and if we can help you in any way, Jim's going to lead us in a song. Why don't you come as we stand and as we sing?